This episode was brought to you by Awesome, AWSM. Awesome is a platform that makes it super easy for companies to give ownership to the people who are creating value for them. It's like Venmo and Stripe, but for equity. Brands can easily share ownership with their agency partners, their influencers and brand ambassadors, their fans and customers, and their employees. Learn more at awesome.com, AWSM.com.
Welcome to Brand, Sweat, and Tears. I'm your host, Dave Oldham, and today I have the most famous marketer in Utah, I think, probably, in my opinion, Alex McArthur. And this was tricky to get this coordinated. We've been working on this for 6 months or something.
Feels like
we've been talking about it.
And
so I'm excited that we finally got this to happen. This is a nice little Christmas present for me. So I appreciate you coming in and taking some time. Super busy guy, so to get some time on your schedule is really great. We're going to talk about two different brands, two different stories that Alex has been involved in. The first one is Purple Mattress, which became a huge hit, and Alex was there kind of in the very beginning and helped be a part of that, contribute to that. And then Kizik, which is another kind of rocket ship. So you've kind of been in these two really cool kind of consumer rocket ship brands, seen them go from the idea to, a kind of widespread adoption. And it will be really, really cool to hear those origin stories and then kind of get your insights and pick your brain a little bit about what did it take to take an idea for a product like a gel-based mattress or this slip-on kind of style of shoe and bring that to life and turn that into an actual successful consumer product. So this will be fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited about it. Glad to be here with you.
So let's start with Purple. When did you join Purple? Do you remember what year was it and how far along was the company? They had existed for a little while as a technology.
Yeah.
They had their technology, this gel kind of technology for a little while, right?
Yeah. So Tony and Terry Pierce, two brothers, great inventors, great businessmen, have had a lot of different businesses, have had success in multiple different areas.
So Purple was not their first one.
No, they had other businesses prior,
Okay.
Maybe not household names, but other entities with unique innovation, pretty solid at patenting unique technologies. They had licensed innovations to Nike, Dr. Scholl's, I think military, if I remember correctly. But they loved cushioning technologies and injection molding.
They're all about that cushion.
Yeah, injection molding was something they thought about. And so they had started a company previously called My Comfort. They had licensed technology to Intellibed at one point, which is a company people here in Utah are familiar with. I don't think nationally they were. They had done quite a few things, and I think they wanted to go bigger. They had looked at some consultants. They brought an individual named Chris, somebody I respect, and he actually brought me in, and I got to know Tony and Terry. So I came in October of 2015. We launched in January of 2016. And Tony and Terry had some of their family members involved, Andy Pierce, a guy named Dan Hill, and they all had, a lot of great contribution to the business. But
they've been using and licensing this gel cushioning technology. And at some point, when did they decide, we want to make a mattress?
Yeah, I think they'd been thinking about that for a while.
Okay.
For years. There were discussions about where to put the gel, whether it would be on top or underneath. There were moments where it was going to be memory foam or foam on top, and the gel would be deeper, and maybe not have that, actual tactile feel like Purple ended up becoming on top. But yeah, they had been thinking about it for a while. Wise enough to know they needed other inputs, and again, that's where Chris came along, I came along, and I came on and some of the people that became the team later on were people we reached out to as consultants. So a guy named Scott Dastrup, Purple's known for its video work. So give, massive credit to Harmon Brothers. Scott Dastrup was a guy that made most of the internal videos. And man, within, the 3 years that we were really humming, I think we output almost 300 different edits and variations of different things. And that was kind of our bread and butter for getting the attention out there. But really the mindset was everybody sleeps, right? Everybody needs a mattress. Right
and
now.
They had already licensed something to IntelliBed, but there wasn't anything preventing them from like creating their own, or did they have to say like, oh, we're going to have to kind of sever these ties with IntelliBed? Or
I mean, if I'm 100% honest with you, I don't know the full dynamic of that situation. And I have met people from, the IntelliBed side of things. There was litigation between Tony and Terry and that group. I don't know the specifics. I know Tony and Terry and trust them, and I know I have since met the founders of IntelliBed, and they had a relationship. It was profitable for both. Purple now owns IntelliBed. An acquisition happened there years later. But in reality, I don't know the deep specifics.
So somehow they had to figure out, now we want to go basically sell our own mattresses. And so we've got to figure that out. And there was maybe some interesting stuff that happened there. But why did they decide to move away from the licensing model and let's just go sell it? It's because they thought we can blow this up?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in reality, the direct-to-consumer mattress industry had taken off. Purple didn't create it. Right. There was Tufton Needle, who some people know, and there was Casper, who had raised a ton of money and was kind of a media darling at the time. And I think they viewed that as an opportunity with their differentiated product to stand out in a time when 100% of mattresses had bought in-store for decades, or for the history of mattresses, right?
Yeah.
And now there's this moment where it feels like every few months that percentage is lifting of how many are willing to buy online.
Okay.
I think they viewed that as an opportunity.
So that's interesting. I didn't know the exact timing, and so I wasn't sure. Were they the first direct-to-consumer mattress? So no, they didn't. They weren't like the pioneers with the arrows in their back, like cutting the brand new trail. It's more there was already some existing proof that this direct-to-consumer model could work with something as big as a mattress, which was that was maybe kind of a crazy initial thought. Is we're going to ship a mattress to people through the mail, and they're just going to unwrap it. It's going to explode in their living room or their bedroom, and then they're ready to go. But they had kind of proved ooh, this is working. Casper's getting some attention, and they're we can do this too, but we have cooler. It's not just like a mattress. We've got something really cool here.
Yeah, I mean, if we're honest, we were fast followers that tried to do it better, and they.
That's not a bad tactic. That's a pretty good.
Yeah, some of them
pretty good strategy.
They proved the business case, and they all had success raising money. And there was another one, Lisa, that raised a bunch of money as well. There were quite a few that raised meaningful money, and people were, valuating these businesses like SaaS businesses, massive multiples, easy to raise money. Cash was easy at that time. Purple was in the very beginning primarily funded by Tony and Terry. So again, kudos to them for taking the risk. And one thing people don't know, they spent millions of dollars making the machines to make the mattresses as well. That's a story that I don't really think
create their own. They were going to manufacture it themselves.
So I mean, not every aspect of the mattress, but they created what we called the Max machine, which was the injection molding machine that could do what we could not find out there anywhere else.
Oh.
And another guy that I think deserves some props for that, his name's Russ Watcott. He's not really embedded in the founder story, even though I think he should be, but he helped make the machine. He's an entrepreneur out there in Utah right now as well, and he's a really sharp guy. But he helped.
Shout out to Russ. Was Russ the mad scientist that's putting this machine together?
Yeah, he did a lot of great stuff.
That's cool.
So yeah, I mean, people don't know that. They think, oh, we were just a marketing engine with a differentiated product. Purple was different. Made the machine that made the products and we didn't copy. So during those 3 years that that kind of core team was building the business, if you looked at, overnight there were 200 to 300 bed-in-the-box companies.
Yeah.
Some had raised a ton of money.
Yeah,
some were just going super
all over the place.
niche with mean, there's one called Big Fig that was just for people with, according to their website, overweight people, right?
How did I not hear about that?
Yeah,
I should have been there.
There are all kinds of different angles, right? and almost all of them copied everything. They were using the same tools. Their websites all looked the same. They all twisted their mattress and put it in the box the same way, and that same unboxing experience. And we're like, let's be creative. Let's do everything our own way. Purple's different. Everybody else is memory foam. Let's make it us versus the world.
Yeah.
Right? So all of these 200 to 300 other brands are selling the same product. We're different. Let's let the brand be different. So we rolled the mattress. It was a tube rather than in a box like everybody else. We, used brighter colors. We made the story more memorable. We told lots of different stories rather than one brand story. Like I felt.
Where did the name Purple originate?
That was, props to Tony on that name. He loved the idea of it feeling like royalty, and purple's the color of royalty and history. So props.
Was
to
the
him.
gel like you could make it any color you want, or just the chemicals? It was purple, or
it could have been blue. It could have been anything.
Okay.
The color became part of the story. So just a lot of fun with doing things differently and really focusing on getting momentum in a space that was loud and had a lot of smart people in it. But it was cool to see. There were a few years where we felt like, man, we'll probably never be bigger than Casper, but it's going to be great to we're growing into 9-figure revenue here. But it was interesting to see us continue with our story. And kind of, in my view, win in the end, even though now, if you look at the stock, it's complicated and it's a little bit messier, and we could talk about that if you want to. It was a blast to build.
So you join, and it was still like an idea?
Yeah, so it was an idea, and again, there was another consultant named Chris, and he did a lot to help get things going as well.
What attracted you to it?
So I was actually in between work. I was looking for the next thing, and was dipping my hand in consulting and had a few other projects. And now that's kind of become a routine for me, where I'll consult, I'll try to get 3 or 4 retainers, and then whichever one's the most interesting, I'll go all in for 3 or 4 years. Then I'll go back to consulting, and then I've done that.
The consulting is kind of like the farm league for like, okay, which idea is going to percolate into something.
I mean, for me, it's almost been like once something gets too big, it's not fun anymore. Yeah. And then I go back to consulting, and then I realize I miss working with people. So I just have this pattern that I keep, jumping.
I can empathize with that a little, yeah.
So, it was a really small team. Again, Tony, Terry, Chris, myself. A couple of Tony and Terry's kids were helping with graphic design or customer support or a Kickstarter campaign that was done early on.
So you had the advantage of a differentiated product that actually had patents behind it.
Sure.
And a team of people who had previous success at creating and licensing products. So this isn't quite the story of like a couple of kids in a garage like building a mattress from nothing, right? Like there was some really cool, unique technology, and there was people who had built technologies that could be licensed and used successfully by like Dr. Scholl's and Nike and others. But the challenge was, okay, now there's a bunch of these mattress companies out there. We have to differentiate ourselves. And how did you go about telling the story that would educate a consumer, even though you guys knew that you were markedly different than all these other like foam mattresses or, smart mattresses or whatever? How did you start to tell or think about telling that story to educate consumers like, no, we're different and this is why you should get a Purple mattress instead of one of these other like 20, 30, 100 options?
Yeah. We thought about that a lot. Dan Hill, who was one of a relative of Tony and Terry's, loved to demonstrate how Purple could work even before we were making mattresses. They had seat cushion material that they were making. So this was a product they were selling through a brand called Wonder Gel at the time, and he loved to demonstrate with an egg how that egg could you could sit on the egg on the seat cushion and it wouldn't crack the egg most of the time. But
there were a few failed experiments where you had egg butt.
So,
but a lot of the time you could actually put an egg, a raw egg, and sit on it and it wouldn't crack the egg.
Yeah. So Dan demonstrated that a lot. Many people know the Harmon brothers, were a part of the Purple story. And, obviously they took
Did Purple just reach out to them?
Yeah.
Were you guys connected with them and said, hey, we need some marketing help. We're thinking video to like demonstrate this thing.
Yeah.
How did that kind of originate?
So big believers in demonstration. The initial business started through a Kickstarter campaign. Another individual by the name of Dan Bischoff was also a part of that. And then Scott Dastrup, the guy that became Purple's internal video guy, he helped make a video for a Kickstarter. Started to get a little attention there, and we noticed that through demonstration, you
were like,
get
ooh.
lift, right? And so the Harmon
Was
brothers,
the egg always part of the demonstration?
Yeah, from day one, it was a part of that. And so Harmon brothers were brought on later on to blow up that story, tell it in a bigger way, and to date, I think that they have had a lot of success in the poop category, right? With poopery and squatty potty, and so. I was on that shoot, for 2 full days sitting there, and brought my daughter on, and she got to sit with Mallory Everton from Studio C, and it was a big production, and stress induced, feeling like, man, we're putting a lot of eggs in this basket, literally, and it's a big swing for us, and it worked.
Did you have
well.
any revenue yet?
From the Kickstarter,
The Kickstarter had been
couple
successful.
$100,000,
okay.
right? So it was, not iconic Kickstarter.
And what was the Kickstarter? Was just you get a discounted mattress at some point? Like, was that the idea? You were getting people to pre-buy the mattress at a discounted price?
Yeah, a new type of mattress. And in that Kickstarter, there were actually products that Purple never ended up offering. So there was a topper, there were other things, and later on we realized, like, we don't want people just buying a topper. We want them to replace the mattress. So, demonstration became vital to the business. So again, Scott Dastrup, who wasn't part of the Harmon brothers, but was also making videos for Purple, he has a much higher rate now, but for like $1,000 a pop, he would make video for us. And we had 10 videos that were helping build the business as well.
Okay.
And then fairly quickly, we turned on our Shopify site, started to get some sales, and we, started to build a team. And now it's cool to see, one of my first businesses out of college was called Orange Soda. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. You've probably heard some stories about that. A lot of, some of Utah's best marketers, I think, came out of Orange Soda.
Yeah.
And now it's cool to see how many great people have come out of Purple. And our first hire, his name was Matt Rogers. If you know Sid Tetro, kind of an icon of, business in Utah. Her little brother is Matt. He's now the founder of Pesty. He was our first hourly employee.
Oh, nice.
And he helped us, take some steps forward as well. So that's
cool.
kind of the beginning story.
Pesty, yeah. In fact, I need to get him on the podcast too. That's
Dude,
a cool
awesome.
story. So.
And Jake, his co-founder, was Purple now has dozens of people running the website, and it's probably overkill, right?
Yeah.
We had one guy, his name was Jake, and he was just amazing. He made our app, he made website, set up all kinds of amazing analytics. So, Matt and Jake as a combo are just killing it with Pesty.
Nice.
Super talented.
So
guys.
shout out to Matt Rogers. And what's Jake's last name?
Jake Berube.
Berube. Okay. So at what point you said Harmon's had success with a couple of the poop, funny kind of poop viral videos, and you guys are like, man, I wonder if they could do something similar for us with this mattress. And because we know video is working and useful, the demonstration of this thing is what helps us separate ourselves from these other mattresses. You reached out to Harmon Brothers. They give you a price tag. Was it sticker shock? I mean, how did you guys decide, like, okay, we're going to invest a big chunk of money in this video because it's swinging for the fences, but if it doesn't work, man, that's a lot of money to invest in a video, right?
Yeah, Chris actually reached out to them and, I think negotiated a solid deal. It was a risk to, take that swing, but I think Like,
Did they ask for equity? Did they say, okay, we'll do some trade for equity on this deal?
They tend to ask for that. I don't know if I can share the specifics of how that came out in the end, but yeah, they do ask for equity.
As you know, at Awesome, we're big believers in giving equity and distributing equity.
No, they definitely had upside.
Okay,
there's no question about that.
Yeah.
And normally it was more in real time, like commission off conversion.
Yeah, performance-based stuff. Yep.
So yeah, they do ask for upside. And again, super talented crew. Massive respect for them with what they're doing with Angel and other platforms. So yeah, it was a risk.
Studio C, which is kind of a local from Brigham Young University, kind of a comedy troupe that kind of originated within the BYU TV kind of ecosystem, and got tremendous popularity. Just hilarious kind of Saturday Night Live style skits. Mallory Stevens is
Mallory Everton.
Mallory Everton.
She became Goldilocks, right?
She was Goldilocks. She's hilarious. She was like, we loved her on Studio C. She's such a funny character. Very talented actress.
Yeah.
She becomes your Goldilocks.
Just to know, to this day, whenever Purple comes up, especially if I'm not in Utah, which is really funny because everybody in Utah knows who Studio C is.
Yeah.
But when I'm elsewhere, it's not like I'm talking about Purple a lot, but if it comes up, I mention that spot.
Yeah.
And people always want to take a picture and have me. So I'll text Mallory a picture of somebody like they're the biggest fan of, like, they like Purple, but they love you.
They love Goldilocks.
Yeah, they love her, so.
She was hilarious. So that helped make the video like even better. Yeah. So it's this demonstration where she's like Goldilocks and they got the mattress and she's testing these mattresses and dropping like a big, huge plate of glass, to smash these eggs on the mattress.
So that's what they're so
eggs
good
don't
at.
Crush, right?
Yeah. The Harmon brothers are fantastic about taking an idea and putting it on steroids, right?
Yeah.
So again, the Dan Hill moment of him sitting on the egg on a seat cushion.
Like, okay, we can make this next level.
A new level. And, special props to Benton on the Harmon brothers. He was the CEO. He's now doing other projects. But, I remember him late at night and, in our warehouse where we had set up a manufacturing space, just tweaking, this apparatus to drop the glass and trying everything and running so many tests. And that was a real demonstration. Much marketing is fluff.
Yeah.
Where, okay, here's a take and it didn't work 99 times. We'll get it to work one time. We got that working in a way that it was a real demonstration. It was real other beds. We didn't manipulate the other beds. And massive props to Ben for real. He put in hours and hours and days and days to pull that off. And, it was a thing of beauty to watch, to see somebody care about something that much.
Yeah.
That demonstration became core to everything that we did. As we got bigger, it became interesting to, most people say brands it's the emotional tie that people feel to a product versus a functional thing. Mm-hmm. That was, if we want to get into it later, that was a really complex part of the journey of building Purple, was people telling you, you're selling stuff, but are you building a brand? And that was a constant battle of where we swayed in our storytelling and how we became known and what we wanted to be known for.
Yeah. Now, I do want to circle back to that. So let's remember that distinction between just the shock and initial kind of get your attention factor versus building connection and community and really getting people to buy into the long-term brand, right? The emotional long-term attachment, creating evangelists and stuff like that. So that's interesting to think about. How do you go about doing that after the initial, hey, I got your attention. Now what do you do with it, right? Yeah. So you are, you get the video. How did you guys launch the video? Just start putting it on social media, or what? What was the launch like?
Yeah. So let me think of all the people that helped us through that process. A guy named Brett Stubbs, who was a part of the Harmon brothers. Obviously Chris, myself. Put it on Facebook, put it on YouTube. Start to run a few dollars to it to see how people react. Obviously remarket to the audience that had bought on Kickstarter. And
did you guys deliver the Kickstarter on time?
That's a good question. Probably not. We did a second one later.
I've been a part of a bunch of Kickstarter campaigns, and I don't know if I've ever received the product within the promised time.
The second one was where I felt like more ownership. We did one for the pillow, and that one, it became the biggest one in the state, I think, to date. Well, actually, let me take that back. We got, what's his name, the author, Sanderson, that's just killed it with his books. I think consumer products, we had the record in the state at $2.5 million or something like that.
On the Kickstarter?
On our pillow Kickstarter. But yeah, I mean, put it out there, got engagement, got some reaction, saw a couple sales, believed in it enough to lean in more, and literally every week, I'd get on the phone with Brett Stubbs, who was running our advertising dollars at the time, and we'd decide, hey, are we going to lean in a little bit more? Going to play it safe for a minute. And so I see one thing that I've loved about the Purple experience is seeing, so many brands make their year plan, and we're going to put this much money into marketing. And everybody says, if you can make more money, we'll spend more, and they never do, right? They play it safe, and we did that on a daily basis of just tweaking, trying to squeeze out a little bit more for every dollar we put in. And that was, I think a big part of the success was that the care enough to want to win, to put in the time, to think it through, and react. And we had some momentum, and we ran with it. And I mean, one thing, Tony and Terry never claimed to understand every aspect of marketing as well as they understood innovation. But man, whenever something worked well, they'd say, why aren't you spending more? And
so they're really supportive.
I've never had anybody truly react that way. Everybody says they will, but they really did. Yeah. And it made, I mean, it was one or two of us sitting there in a room, and then 2 years later, the marketing team was 40 people, right? Wow. And we had hired 1,000 people in manufacturing, and a lot of that credit goes to Tony and Terry simply saying, let's keep going. Yeah. It was literally riding the razor's edge of how high is high? When are we going to hit a wall? Yeah. And I think it could have, without that mindset, I think it could have been a $2 million business.
It could have just kind of flatlined or held off at a certain point. That's interesting. They were willing to keep reinvesting in it instead of just taking a ton of money off the table for themselves, which they could have at any point, right? Yeah. So you launched did the Goldilocks thing just take off right from the get-go? Was it instantly viral kind of, or did that take a little while to get some steam, and were you sweating bullets while this thing was or did it just instantly was a success? Which one?
That's a great question, and it's a little bit of a nuanced answer because, again, the Harmon Brothers has had viral successes before with Squatty Potty, Poopery.
The pressure on them was we've got to repeat these successes. Yeah,
and
got to do it again.
And those were viral. Mm-hmm. Purple wasn't. I wouldn't label it as viral, and I don't think they would either. It worked as an engine, meaning if we put dollars behind it, it would get views, and people would talk about it, and they would buy. Mm-hmm. It wasn't quite to the over-the-top humor level that some of those others were. And
a little bit of that, shock factor virality of a toilet or the poopery. Or
people were sharing those organically and talking about it and hey, have you seen this? Yeah. And with Purple, people couldn't stop watching it. With Goldilocks, they couldn't stop watching it, but they weren't quite sharing it to the same clip as some others. But again, that business became bigger than the other ones because it was, number one, the category. There's great margin in mattresses and all kinds of different factors, but it worked as an engine. Whereas some of those other ones, they go viral, and if you put dollars behind it, it doesn't always produce the same results. So after the moment of virality, it can fade, right? Yeah. Whereas Purple, we had the beginnings of an engine that could continue to work and scale and grow. And so we saw that, and we continued to lean into it. We did a couple more supportive videos with the Harmon Brothers, 3 more. Then Scott, who had been with us from day one, who produced those 10 videos for $1,000 at the time, came internally, and he helped make more and more spots. And we told different stories, even though people told us not to, just stick with Goldilocks. You got a story. And we did things with Sasquatch. We did other stories, and that helped multiply the discussion about us. And then that's the moment when it came, again, that engine worked, and the Goldilocks spot is iconic. I think the defining ad, besides maybe us old guys that remember the wine glass test on the mattress from decades ago, I think it became the defining spot for the category. And so we just continued to lean into video, tell stories, and then it started to really become viral at that point, and people were talking about it, inviting others into their bedroom to see their mattress, which we're like, how do we create virality when nobody invites you into their bedroom to see it? And then it became a thing that people wanted to go into a bedroom and say, hey, we have a purple. And we heard countless stories about that.
That's cool. It had that kind of natural word of mouth stuff built into it. So because you guys were manufacturing it yourself, you had both the blessing and the curse of you were in control of the manufacturing process. When this started to take off, how many mattresses did you guys start to sell, and how did you keep up on the manufacturing side? Did you have to build a whole bunch more machines? I mean, these machines are running 24/7, and how did you keep up with the demand?
We had one Max machine, which was the injection molding machine to make that purple grid material. So that thing was humming, and there were times when it slowed down or went offline, and we had issues. So early on, I mean, of course, it starts with one sale, right? And then you build, and then you decide if you're going to advertise more. And we started to do a little more press and social and all those things. And so there were times in that first year where we couldn't make more than 200 mattresses a day, And
how many were you selling a day?
In the very beginning, it was single digits, right?
Yeah.
And then each day that we put more ad spend behind the spot, and then we started to set up our marketing automation and email, it would build. So it went from 0 to, a couple to tens and hundreds. And when we got to the hundreds, right off the bat, it was, a couple a day, right? When we got to the hundreds, we had to start capping it. And we would advertise less. And the people that had joined our email list, we would set up hey, we've got 200 today. And then they'd go.
Wow.
And then, hey, we've got this. And then, we got scared, and we really had to start investing in the manufacturing process. And I would go down to the manufacturing floor, and I'm a marketing consultant. I wasn't even an employee at this time. I had a rev share deal where I got, I don't know if I should share specifics, but I got a cut for every one that was sold, and I had a retainer. And at this point, I started to hire employees, and I was still a contractor, But I would run this stand-up with these operation guys and manufacturing guys that had worked on Tony and Terry's other businesses every morning. I'm like, how many do we got? And they're like, who's this white collar guy that's telling us what to do?
They're great guys. You could
guys.
sell 200 a day or whatever.
So I'd go back and chat with them, and we'd figure that out. And then, Tony and Terry and Russ and some of these other guys were starting to say, what are we going to do now? And this warehouse that we were working out of was full of just junk and collections of inventions that Tony and Terry had had for decades. And we had to clear that out. That took weeks and weeks of, removal of stuff. And then we started to get, larger machines in that could, more compact the mattress. And that's when that unboxing experience started to happen, when people would open it and it would expand.
It would grow, yeah.
But yeah, really had to lean into operational things there. And, not long later, we bought the plant in Grantsville where we could, set up multiple, production lines. And
so it was just more of these Max machines, basically.
And those took years to make, it felt like.
Wow.
It was probably a year, it felt like. I mean, I don't remember the specifics on that, but I remember walking into that space in Grantsville, and it was I can't remember, 5 football fields, or you just walk in there in this empty space and set up all these production lines. And then that's when we really started to go crazy with marketing, and, got momentum and got the YouTube ad of the year, and all kinds of, accolades started to come in, and we really built the team at that point and focused on scale.
YouTube ad of the year.
Yeah, our second spot.
That wasn't the Goldilocks.
It wasn't the Goldilocks.
Okay,
spot.
what was the YouTube ad?
It was the next one where, and if I'm honest, I mean, the Goldilocks spot was the iconic spot, right?
Yeah.
There's no question. That's the one that people remember.
That's the one people,
we actually had Sasquatch, the second spot that we did with another local group that's now defunct called Big Door.
Uh-huh.
a lot of their production crew is the people making stuff for BYU TV. The Sasquatch spot was actually our highest converting video, which is interesting. And it ended up getting tens of millions of views as well. But yeah.
That was the one. Sasquatch was the YouTube ad of the year.
And it actually wasn't even that one. It was the YouTube ad of the year. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. It was kind of another demonstration of kind of a viral guy. We brought him in as an actor.
So it was humorous.
It was more humor. He was hanging from his back like this, right? And we drop him onto the mattress, and that spot became the YouTube ad of the year, and kind of brought us into a new stratosphere where, the YouTube team, the Facebook team, everybody's spending money with them.
Yeah.
They were looking at us saying, "Man, you guys are creating content that's, different than anybody else." And they started to invite us in and like even make content for us because they were showing us as case studies. And I've even had these guys reach out, with Death guys, say, "Hey, you guys inspired us to," and they're infinitely better than we were, right? It was cool to be doing different things and people to notice and take it to other business categories. But that YouTube ad of the year moment was pretty fun for the team.
Did all of the video that you guys created, was it all humorous? Was like humor kind of one of the core elements that you guys were using to get the virality, the shareability, the attention? Or did you guys have some serious stuff too? Like just straight the data or just straight the science?
Yeah, so I mentioned Scott, who was making internal videos. We did some, everything had kind of the quick cut, scroll stopping, attention grabbing angle to it. We knew that wouldn't last for forever, and I'm a big believer that you can elevate a brand. You can use tactics that give you attention to ring the cash register so you can live on. But we leaned pretty heavily into humor.
Yeah.
Some people mock us and laugh about it, but
you were laughing all the way to the bank.
It was necessary and it worked. And you've got, Serta, CLA, Simmons, Tempur-Pedic, all these brands, and to create disruption, we wanted to do something different, and it was working. We did try a few other things. There was some, take the middleman out, which is a very common disruptor story. We used that a few times, and it worked. Yeah. But it didn't create that emotional pull that some of the humor and other things did. So we leaned into that a lot.
So I dare say that I don't know if humor by itself is good enough to sell a terrible product. You get attention, but if the product itself isn't great, it's going to fall flat pretty quickly, right? After that initial attention. There is this strategy that, like, combined with a really cool product, that Purple in and of itself was a product that was solid and could stand on its own and was good. It wasn't like you were just marketing junk. But you took this marketing strategy that's like, we're going to apply humor, we're going to be unique, we're going to find a way to tell our story that's different than everybody else. I don't remember any other mattress advertisements. I know I saw them all because I'm aware of the brands, like, all the Caspers and the Moons and the Eights and the, whatever, like there's 100 now. And I was exposed to them all, but I remember the Purple advertisements, right? That's something that stuck with me. And I'm not going to share just a boring mattress ad with somebody on social media, but I'll probably share the Goldilocks or the Sasquatch. Even though you said those weren't like totally viral, they're still funny enough and shareable enough that I might talk to my friends and family about it. I might share it on social media, right?
Yeah, and there's a balance to it. We had a lot of people asking us for advice, like, how do we do humor after this? And people went too far, and it doesn't connect to, like, you've got to find the balance of people wanting it and respecting the product. A lot of people that use humor, they don't respect the product. They see it as a gimmick.
Yeah.
So that balance was hard to really communicate why it's unique, why it's special. Humor can be a little bit of a desperate ploy to get people to stop the scroll, but, people want to feel something with a brand, and not everybody can be, Apple or Nike. We all marketers compare themselves to these iconic brands, and they look at where they are now. Go look at go look at Apple or Nike's earliest
first
ads.
3 months.
There's some really horrible stuff, and people remember is the current stuff.
Yeah.
And like, they had to ring the cash register to get where they were, to invest in the next more beautiful piece.
Yeah.
And And nobody wants to look at the journey. They think about the end outcome, and
It is a great point. Apple had some really ugly, boring, stupid advertisements prior to the 1984 Chiat Day, famous, or Chiat Day, the 1984 will never be like, it's like the world changing the Macintosh video, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't their first attempt at advertising.
But that people only remember the wins.
Yeah.
You can't get the wins until you've taken the steps along the way. So
that's a great lesson.
I've seen so many brands try to overthink perfect everything from the beginning with positioning, where they have the same black and white website as everybody else, but they haven't done anything to be worth talking. They're not worth talking about. And I'm a big believer in taking adjustments along the way and making the quick pivots and making sure you're worth talking about from day one, rather than hoping you get momentum.
So when you consult brand new, just baby startup companies, how do you help them start thinking about, like, how do I market something that's brand spanking new, especially if I don't have like $250,000 to make a viral video?
Yeah. It's, I was with an AI company this morning that's, got an amazing differentiated product, and they're asking that same question, and it's being willing to take little swings and invest once you see results. It's not revolutionary. It's test and learn. It's that mindset that we all talk about. But as I watch people, they really don't do it. They take one swing, get scared, and play it safe.
Yeah.
And to me, calculated risk, being willing to take risk in a moment before you're not desperate. I see risk always taken in the moment of desperation. We've got to pivot.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah.
We're going to fold. Like, to me, the moment
Is way
you're willing to
earlier
take
than that.
risk before you find big new channels that open up for you. Yes, you can have failures. Yes, it doesn't always work, but you always learn something. And if you take those risks prior to the moment of desperation, I feel like that is a big difference between brands that have massive growth and those that don't.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway. Okay. Any last things you want to say about the Purple story before we shift to part 2?
I'm very sad that the stock is a penny stock right now. There's hundreds of stores out there. I hope it goes well. I'd be very sad if it didn't survive, but it's a household name now, which is
Yeah, what do
cool.
you think happened? And maybe part of the story is, like, at what point did you decide this has been really fun, this has been amazing, but it's time for me to leave and move on to my next story? Like how does your Purple story kind of end? And what do you think the future for Purple looks like?
So for me, the minute it went public, I haven't shared this story much publicly, but there were moments where I'm throwing up in the bathroom because the pressure on setting up things to go public and post being public was not fun for me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm a builder. I'm not a screw turner.
Yeah.
And
Going
so-
public has a tremendous amount of pressure.
It was
with that.
brutal.
Yeah.
And we did a reverse merger SPAC to make it even more complicated. And it went in the
Just
moment,
to make it fun.
in that short moment when they were kind of cool, right? There was a moment where SPACs were kind of
It was
cool.
like a week and a half where they were cool.
Maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
No, right after, within months of going public, I exited, and I think Purple has a very bright future. The people love the product. There's been a couple different CEOs since, and respect them. One came from leader from American Eagle. Another was the CEO of New Balance, and I think it's easy to say we need to mature, but you also don't want to leave behind what connected with customers.
Yeah, initially connected with
like people. Purple went within a short time from non-existent to the most talked about mattress in the world, despite not having the resources of others.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, besides saying, "Oh, I like Purple. It's comfortable. It's different," nobody's talking about it anymore, and I feel like that's been left behind. So
Yeah.
I hope they can bring that back. So yeah, I see
So
the
goes
future is
public.
the cool thing is that people love the bed.
Yeah.
So I think it will
It's a
always
great
have a
product.
place.
Yeah.
At the moment, people aren't talking about it anymore.
Yeah. So it goes public. You're like, this is amazing building this, but it's not really the building. Now it's kind of this, like, work with the market and the whims of like market trading stock prices and stuff. So you exit. So you went into your like, okay, now I'm
Back to consulting mode. Yeah.
I've got a couple of consulting gigs I'm working on. How and where did you get introduced to Kizik, and how does that story begin?
Yeah, so there's actually a ton of connection between how that happened. So Monty Deere, who's the current CEO of Kizik.
When I first met him, he was a lawyer.
Yep.
At BTJD, right? Yep. Like Bennett, Tueller, Johnson, Deere, or
He's
whatever.
the
He's the Deere.
Yeah.
And he was helping startups. They had this kind of startup legal package. One of my earlier startups had been accepted into Boom Startup, and they had a deal with Boom Startup where we'd get like this little startup package. And so we got some incorporation in Delaware and some other like operating agreement kind of stuff from BTJD. So all of those guys were really great. I met Monty and some of the other partners who were fantastic. So I'm just thinking of like Monty as this lawyer, and then suddenly years later, he's in this consumer brand. So I'm so curious to see how this evolves.
Yeah, I'll share. No, Monty he had a connection to both, Kizik and Purple. So Monty was doing, helping lead. So the two founders that invented the material, Tony and Terry, Monty was helping Terry through this transaction. I mean, Purple had over $1 billion valuation. Monty was helping lead Terry through that. And when I told Terry, I'm like, hey, it's not fun for me anymore. I'm gonna bail, man. He's like, make sure you sell your stock at the right time. He gave me a financial investment book, very kind of him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm so sad. You helped build this with us. Let me see what I can do to help you find the next thing. And that night or that evening, I got a call from Monty again, who was Terry's right-hand guy through the transaction. And Monty's like, hey, just came off as a really cool guy, and I was scared because he was a lawyer. I'm like, what am I in trouble? What's going on here? He's like, hey, I'm involved in something else. It has a little similarity to Purple, where there's some very unique IP in a big category. I mean, mattresses, it's an $18 billion space. Mm-hmm. Footwear's depending on how you look at it, $200 to $300 billion space.
Yeah.
He's like, we've got some really cool tech. And they were 3 blocks from where I was at Purple.
Wow.
So he called me. I walked, the day I gave notice, I walked down the street, met Monty, went into this little basement with nasty carpet.
Yeah.
And they showed me.
You literally walked from one job to
literally
the next.
Did.
That's amazing.
And I didn't, I saw the potential. They had been trying to move the business for a couple of years already. They themselves had done a Kickstarter. I think somebody on the team can correct me if I'm wrong. I think they'd done a couple 100,000.
Okay, so who were the let's talk about who are the core inventors?
Yeah, so Mike Pratt is the inventor and patent. He has the patents on, hands-free adjustable shoes, that you can step into.
Why did he want to invent that?
So at the time he had founded a company called OGIO, a bag company that had, so many bags were the same.
Yeah.
And he came out and made bags cool.
Yeah.
And when you saw an OGIO bag in the airport, you remembered it.
Yeah. I was 100% on that, where I had this boring old black, maybe, I don't know, Wilson tailor-made, like some generic like bag. And the first time I saw an OGIO bag, I'm pretty sure I like ditched my bag and went and bought an OGIO bag. They were just so much cooler. It was like a big step up. That's another kind of like taking a boring existing category and making it like cool, or adding this like extra kind of factor to it. Okay, so I had forgotten that, like OGIO. So were bags the very first thing that OGIO did? And was it golf bags, or they had backpacks? They had a whole bunch of like stuff. Where did they start?
Yeah,
do you remember?
I mean, if I'm honest, I don't know the true origins of who he was selling to, but they had bags with much more functionality than the average bag.
Yeah.
They did end up doing golf bags and other things. Maybe you should have a mic on someday to tell that story. But, they sold in a variety of different ways. Licensing became a big thing for them, where, other people were selling it for them as well.
And OGIO became a massive brand, eventually got bought by Callaway.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So there was some aspect of technology that they came up with. And did Mike invent it, or did he have like scientists on his team? Or like, is he an inventor?
Yeah, he totally has an inventor mindset. He always brings good people to help him.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, like some of our core people at Kizik now are people he brought from OGO.
Okay.
Craig and Steve and Brad. These are guys that, he had designing bags.
Yeah.
And now we're making shoes or shoe technology. So yeah, Mike's the founder, the visionary.
There was this idea that on a golf bag, at least, you just unzip the ball pocket. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So you just need to grab a ball really quick. You just want to slip your hand in and grab it, but you want it to stay closed, right? So is that where this kind of pivoting, flexible thing came about?
I mean, I don't want to speak for Mike, but from our conversations about it, I think that golf connection does have a moment there. He's always loved the idea of hands-free golf shoes.
So did you start trying to do it with shoes, or did it start with the bag? And do you remember which came first?
So, I mean, he was making the bags first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then within OGO and before he sold to Callaway, he had already, and this was years ago.
Yeah.
So people think Kizik's this new thing, right? Years ago, he had patented these ways to step into shoes.
Okay.
And it was, Callaway bought the company, and Mike, with his foresight, I mean, hopefully I'm not getting him in trouble here. I think Callaway believed in that concept.
Yeah, so he carved it out. Okay.
Literally paid, and I won't share the specifics, but paid for the rights to take it out. And he did. Jason Lee, a few of his sons, Steve, or Spencer and Jensen, helped him do a Kickstarter. They got a little bit of attention, weren't really selling. And then that's the day that I walked over from Purple to Kizik.
Okay, we've got this cool technology where the heel of the shoe, do you have someone right now?
I'm so embarrassed. I'm on a podcast. I wear Kizik's 99 out of 100
Most
days.
of the time I see you, I don't know if I can expect you to wear them like 24/7.
I'm wearing a different pair of shoes today.
Because I was going to say, you should pull them off and we should put them on the table. I should have had the foresight to say, okay, bring it. Because I mean, most of the people that are listening to it might have seen the technology by now because it's starting to be out there. But it's this cool kind of like flexible heel that you can just slip your shoe on, but then it still stays on. It doesn't feel like it's going to slip off like a heelless slipper or something like that.
It feels like you're wearing a well-fitted, laced shoe that you've tightened to fit, but you can just pop into it and it feels like a pop on the back.
Yeah.
Genius idea. The minute I met Mike and Monty, I'm like, guys, this is, the potential of this is amazing.
Yeah.
They had been stuck trying to make a lot of different shoes. My advice was to simplify, go athleisure. It took us about a year to make it. And again, I'm consulting with 3 or 4 other different companies at the time. Within a few months, Mike put.
What did they think their target market was?
That's a great question. They were thinking more senior at the time.
Okay.
From my observation.
So this is like nurse style shoes or like the grandpa style shoes because it's hard to bend over and tie.
A lot of leather shoes, more expensive. I think they wanted to sell to everybody. And Mike, again, great visionary that believes hands-free is for everybody.
Yeah, and he had already had.
I don't mean to label just how I saw it. It felt like a brand.
I wondered in those first consulting conversations when you probably said, who do you guys think is your initial customer?
I mean, and I was probably coming off a high of having exited Purple and maybe came in slightly arrogant and was a little bit bold in how I thought about the name and the style and all that stuff. So I came in and was pretty direct.
Were they already calling it Kizik?
Yeah, they were already calling it Kizik. And
did you like the name of the first gut check?
That's a tough question. You're putting me on the spot here.
Be honest.
I've never loved the name, but I understand the value in it, and I actually tried to change the name for a good year.
Wow.
Worked on. I bought other names. Still have some domains of names that I loved, and then we got momentum, and it worked, and it didn't scare too many people off. I have had people say they didn't love it. But it's working now, and it's people look at the brand for the right reasons, and so.
Well, I'm a contributor to Nike's bottom line in a very significant way.
Yeah, I've noticed.
I've seen I'm kind of a shoe guy.
Yeah.
I have many, many pairs. I have a shoe wall, and I have many pairs of Nikes.
What's your favorite pair?
I'm a Jordan guy, so probably 1s, 3s, and 11s are my favorite models. If I
No
gun to
4s?
my head, no.
4's my favorite.
Really?
4 bread.
Yeah.
That was the childhood shoe. I saw this kid on the beach in North Carolina, on the
that was
beach,
it.
on a pier, wearing Jordan 4s. I'm like, that's the coolest guy I've ever seen.
Yeah. So the 4s, if we're getting, this is off on a tangent, but the little thing that sticks up in the back kind of digs
Drove
into
you
your
nuts?
heel.
Yeah.
It's cool looking. The 3s, like gun to my head, the 3s are probably my favorite. Tinker Hatfield and he's done some like, re-releases that are like super cool. There's a Justin Timberlake kind of collab with Tinker Hatfield. It's a nice, anyway. So probably if I had to pick, the 3s are my favorite and 1s and 11s. So I have a lot of those. I have 1 or 2 12s. I have like 3 or 4 pairs of 4s. The 2s were disaster. The 5s are disaster, and almost anything in between. And I'm not even a fan of like the 20s and the 21s, that are just, it's ridiculous. But there was something also about the magic of the patent leather on the 11s when those came out that it's like kind of mind blowing. Like people hadn't really done that on a shoe like that before, which is kind of crazy. It was almost tuxedo shoes were the only shoes that had that, so that combination was
Pretty shiny.
yeah.
You can see somebody wearing 11s.
But I brought that up not to take us off on a huge tangent, but to the name and to a brand. The first time I heard the name Nike, I thought it was Nike. I didn't think it was Nike, and I thought it was dumb. I had no idea what it was. I'm like, Nike, what even does that mean? And then the same thing with Adidas. And I didn't even know until years after I had bought Adidas that it's basically the dude Adolf, it's his name, and it's like they just kind of made up this brand from the founder's name.
Have you read Sneaker Wars yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's cool to kind of get all the backstory on that. But I guess my point is there are so many brands that become massive that they make the name amazing, and then after the fact, everyone thinks like, oh, that's such a great brand. But like everybody's initial reaction to it, just from the name perspective, is like, what the heck? Or, that's even dumb. Like they might have even had kind of a negative reaction to the name. So Kizik, I was curious to see what your initial gut reaction was. But now to that point, you guys have a lot of brand momentum and you've built a lot of recognition around it. And Kizik is kind of synonymous with this, like, the ease of the slip-in heel, even though the boys at Skechers are over there like trying to. So we got to talk about that a little bit. It's like, okay, is there like a legal battle, or is there like, how is Skechers kind of getting around this kind of thing that you guys have like patented and put a lot of effort into? So gut reaction is like, I don't know if I love the name, but the technology is really cool. And you had just literally walked over from this other building where another product that was probably really, really demonstrable. Like you could demonstrate with video how cool this product is. Like Purple, the same thing is like you could show how easy it is to slip into the shoe, where maybe demonstrating how cushiony a sole is harder to demonstrate, or how comfortable a shoe is. Like, how can you demonstrate that? That's like, you just got to try it. This was like, we can demonstrate this. So was your mind just thinking like, dude, we could just repeat exactly what we did at Purple and blow this thing up?
Yeah.
Or how did you approach that?
I mean, in that moment, I'm like, they knew what they had. They knew they had a good idea, but they had been struggling to get momentum for a minute. And in my head, I'm like, man, I am the most blessed human being in the world to walk into this the minute I'm like, I'm done with this other thing. Stress is too
and you're
high.
just ready to rock this thing.
And I'm like,
don't even skip a beat.
Like, went home and told my wife, I'm like, man, I thought I was going to go through 6 months of discovery. And, and I knew I could get some consulting gigs. I wasn't worried about my livelihood.
Yeah.
We had exited Purple, which was great.
Just to literally walk.
But to literally
the
walk
same
over
day
there,
from one amazing product to like another amazing product.
I to be honest, like,
you're the golden child.
No, dude, no, I realize how much luck is involved here. I totally get it. And, man, I hope this comes off right and not arrogant. My son, he's on a mission in Ecuador right now. He calls it Alex lore. He's like, when we go out to a restaurant, people know that you did this or you did that. I'm like, dude, I've had these things handed to me, so I hope you know that, son. Like, this is, I didn't invent the idea. I do try to build on the idea and make it bigger.
And you've got a lot of really great people on the team and working with you and collaborating. It's a very collaborative
I am
thing.
surrounded by so many talented people, and I wish I could name them all. So I hope it doesn't seem like I'm too self-absorbed, but I realize how lucky I've been and you know, how things have just fallen in my lap. And
But here's this opportunity. So what did you decide to do with it? Like, what was the first, hey, here's what we're going to do first?
A little bit of name battle for a minute. You know, they had tried, initially they were in some boutique stores, and I wanted to push online first. I'm like, hey, if you want to build a big brand, if you want to own this differentiation, we've got to tell the story online. They weren't having success there. They were in boutique stores selling a little bit of shoes.
So they have tried to do some online stuff?
A little bit. They had done a Kickstarter, which I didn't help with that.
And why did that kind of fall flat, do you think?
I mean, I don't think it was completely flat. I just don't think it got them to where they needed to be. I think the
was
story...
it more like a explainer video, or what did they use on their Kickstarter?
I mean, they actually used some of the techniques that either Harmon Brothers or Purple or others had used. They had used those angles. I think it just didn't connect and missed some of the elements that make an emotional pull. They used some of the tactics, but it didn't connect. So
what specifically did you do to get that connection?
So they were spending money all over the place, from magazines to some print, some other stuff.
Yeah.
Immediately pulled the money in. Got to know what they were doing first, and to be honest, I was just excited about the shoes, trying the shoes, exploring, thinking about it. Spencer on the team, Mike's son, who's still with Kizik and does great work. He kept talking about, being on a treadmill, riding it to the end and falling in the shoes. I'm like, man, that's an amazing demonstration. He talked about jumping on a trampoline and jumping off and landing in the shoes.
Yeah.
So first thing I did was pull the money in.
You could partner with OK Go.
Yeah.
The band that does all that. And like have them do all these, fall into the shoes.
No idea how many times I've thought about them in terms of video. That's really funny.
You like the perfect combo, right?
That's really funny. So Spencer and I brainstormed video ideas, pulled the money in from where it was being spent, got really simple on how we spent our dollars, worked with a local group that I trusted called Maddox Labs to simplify our advertising just for a minute. I'm always a believer in building the team internally, but we didn't have momentum then, so I had to create it.
Yeah.
We did some new creative. We changed that we were spending and started to get momentum. We started to see a little bit, and then...
so you're running a lot of small...
Lots of little tests.
Risk.
No expensive spots.
Not big.
Yet. Very simple things. We're selling some of the older inventory that Kizik had, again, with a name that I didn't love and shoe styles that I didn't like, but amazing technology.
Yeah.
We were selling it off, decent advertising, and that technology was resonating just enough that I'm like, okay, this will work.
With who? Who did it start to resonate with?
So at the time, the Kizik logo was kind of a maroon color. The shoes, again, were heavier leather shoes. So it was a little bit more of a mature audience at the time. Mm-hmm. That's my way of saying senior.
Yeah.
At the time. And there were other people that were popping up. There was a dude that had run a marathon in a pair of these leather Kiziks. There was all kinds of it was intriguing enough that some people, you could see the potential of virality there.
Yeah.
And so we started to run our tests, saw success. Jason Lee, who's chief operating officer now, him and I'm like, Jason, there's so much potential here. We worked on this little deck on how to pivot things. Yeah. We flew to Denver to meet with this branding agency that I was intrigued by, and started to brainstorm, and we talked a lot about athleisure and making it more broad appeal rather than target specific. We talked a lot about comfort and convenience. And so that next year, it took a while because shoemaking's slow.
Yeah.
Craig and Steve on the team, who were, owning the innovation and technology, started to listen to some of the things Jason and I were going back and forth about with athleisure and simplifying everything.
Yeah.
And we came away with 2 shoes that were kind of for everybody, really simple, comfortable. And then once again, I approached the Harmon brothers about doing another spot. It didn't become the icon that Goldilocks did.
Yeah.
It did some work for us. And then I started to bring on, the team, some of the people I've worked with in the past. So I brought in a guy named Blake Brown, who now is VP of brand at Kizik. I brought on Brett Swenson, and we're starting to bring the cash register now. Right?
Yeah.
So brought on Brett Swenson, who was
he was
my email guy.
Breakaway kind of
not
moment.
one moment.
It was kind of just little bits and
Yeah.
pieces started to get positive momentum. Where was the manufacturing happening?
So the manufacturing was happening overseas.
Okay. So they weren't trying to make them themselves. This was outsourced manufacturing. And then the marketing, you're like trying lots of little tests, seeing some traction again, just because the product was good enough that like people were like, okay. Can you remember across all the different marketing channels, like did one start to pull more than another? Like what started to resonate in the beginning?
Yeah, so that's harder because one thing that's so unique about Kizik is no matter who we target, every week I hear of a different use case.
Yeah.
Like one of my biggest fears when starting consulting was that it would become a medical thing. And
Yeah.
people would say it's only for people that can't bend over and tie their shoes. I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, let's think big. Easier
I
way to
remember having a conversation with you super early on that you're like, I don't want people to think of the shoe just as like for special needs or for, just hospital cases or people who like physically can't. Like I want everyone to see the value in this and see how this could apply to them, be valuable for them.
Well, and as much as I care about those audience is like Mike, as our visionary, that's one of the things that he loves is we are helping people that have been stuck for a long time.
Yeah.
And again, like
So
I said,
life
on social media or once a week.
Yeah, life changing for those
Like
people.
we never thought about this use case.
Yeah.
And people are coming with that on their own. So I wanted to make sure to affect and help as many people as we could, that we tell a broad story. And another thing I've learned about people that need our shoes, they don't want to wear something that is a medical shoe.
Yeah, they
that
don't want
other
it to
people
look
don't want to
lame.
wear.
Yeah.
Right. So to me,
Still
that was a
gotta look
big
cool.
thing to fight. Besides the name, I gave up on that fight, but I feel like I kind of won on pushing for the broad appeal angle. And that angle is, I think, what's really led to, Kizik's scale. So if you look at the very beginning, it was mostly older men buying the shoes.
Yeah.
And older people don't share, and they don't talk about their products to other people. And they're, not my words, but other people's words, they're not cool, right?
Yeah.
And, our hope was that we could pull down the age and make it more interesting across gender and other things. So now you look at it and we sell more shoes to women and it's much younger. And those are the people that share and talk about things and can help you gain momentum. So it's really within just a matter of a couple short years based off the product that we make and the way that we talk and the brand elements, it's completely turned over in terms of who our core audience is.
Yeah.
There's still more, even though our core audience is younger and female, because it's now more intriguing to more people, there's more old people wearing them and more people that need them or people with Parkinson's or people with, severe diabetes that struggle to put on their shoes. But it's also more acceptable and cool. And the greatest thing to me is the Utah community has just really helped us blow this up. And a lot of very influential people love our shoes and that's spreading across the country. LinkedIn's been an amazing channel for us, which people don't view as a normal one, but
it's an interesting channel to think of in terms of consumer brand reaching. But it's people take pictures and photos, especially they can travel scenario. And I want to come to the kind of the brilliance around that marketing campaign. If we go back a little bit, so Monty was involved in the company and was legal counsel and stuff. How did the leadership evolve around like the company, and how did you see like the organization of the company evolve as you kind of grew with them and as things started to blow up?
So Mike had sold his company to Callaway previously.
So he was set,
Eric,
like he could just kind of retire if he wanted. But he's an inventor,
I'm not the one
right?
to say if he's done or set or what, but he was, doing his thing, and Monty was there, seeing the potential in terms of, what it could be. There was another, Eric Nielsen is kind of the IP guy, and also realized through this is one thing to note. Nike saw what we were doing, and I can't share too much publicly, but they became investors and licensees, and that was another thing that gave us massive momentum and attention. Is a little bit of capital there to build a bigger team. Mm-hmm. So as we made these pivots, we saw sales momentum with the brand. Nike became an investor and licensee. And Monty negotiated that deal, brilliantly with Nike, and was fantastic there. Earlier than that, as we started to get momentum selling shoes online, Monty called me one night. He's like, dude, I know I'm not a consumer guy. Would you support me being the CEO? And like, he's one of the best people I've ever met. Like, I've told him this, like, I want to be me, but if I had to be somebody else on this planet, it'd probably be you. Like, he's just such a good, well-rounded guy. Yeah. And, he came on full time, and that's a big change. He was a partner at a very successful law firm.
Yeah,
that's
a
crazy
leaving
thing,
that.
But yeah, he should tell his own story. But like having him join and starting to get momentum, people started to watch us, and that Nike, when we did the press release, that got us some attention. And now you see we have leaders from Vans, Hoka, we have a designer from multiple designers from strong companies, and we built a very different team than we had in the beginning. So momentum's continued to build, and we continue to level up and get stronger.
So it's interesting that, again, solid product, which is the foundation that you got to build from. But in the Kizik story, there wasn't any one of these like huge kind of breakaway hits. It was like we're testing all these things. Starting to get traction here, then turning around and reinvesting like the revenue that we get from these little things, doubling down where it's looking like it starts to work. So would you say that the whole growth story there is just this constant process of like test a little, evaluate, readjust? There wasn't any big like home run miraculous like breakaway things. It's just this kind of the foundational principles of marketing and testing and adjusting as you go.
I mean, just to be fair, the moment of genius is when Mike thought of
the
whole
product
way to do something unique with shoes.
Yeah.
So props to Mike for sure, and the team that helped him there. But after that, I can't point to one moment where everything changed. It was, learning, building, testing. Every time we launch a new shoe and we try to forecast it, we're so wrong. Like, we think we've got to figure it out. Like, okay, we've learned more now. Everything's changed. We're going to be, the one thing I've learned about forecasts, you're going to be wrong. It's just how wrong, So, I mean, you were looking at a shoe recently on our site that we, thought would be what we call a BB. We have BBs or bullets. Like, we're going all in on it, ordering a ton, and BB we don't expect much from, and these boots sold out in 6 hours, right? Like it's crazy.
So for the audience who maybe don't know what we're talking about, it's like the Kizik like a month or two ago released this moon boot. I think it was mostly targeted for women, but I mean it was like anyone could get it, right? A couple of different shades of color. I wanted to get the white ones for my wife, but there was white, and then was there
there was
like two other colors of sage. But moon boots that you can kind of slip your foot on, and then the heel is flexible enough that your foot can get around. It's a high entry, and so usually the problem is once your foot gets down there into that corner, it's like if for the boot to fit well, it's got to be a pretty tight, and your foot has to be pretty flexible to get around the corner there.
Yeah, every winter.
And with this heel, it's like just slip them right on. You don't have to like be yanking on the boot to like pull it up or whatever.
Every winter, I feel like I have a part-time job in putting on and removing boots for my wife.
Yes.
She wants to go out in the snow, or when it's raining, I'm like, yanking these off.
Exactly.
This boot's so exciting, and I mean, I wanted to call them Moonies, but our theme, just to have fun with it, but the theme of our shoe naming has been off of locations and destinations, and so we went with the name Juneau with a misspelling to keep it shorter rather than Juneau, Alaska. But it's been a fun shoe to put out there.
Yeah, so they kind of have that puffy coat sort of feel to it. I want to talk about one of the other kind of unique products that you guys dropped recently was this collaboration with the Marshmallow Company.
Jet Puff.
Jet Puff. So talk about that. How did that come about?
Yeah, one of our designers, his name's Brad, had a contact over there, and we've been looking to do more collabs, and we just wanted to take a swing at one, and that's one that implied comfort, and people think soft
as a marshmallow, yeah.
And I love to do unexpected things, and like, what's more unexpected than a shoe company with a food company, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, Brad's
for
the
your
one that
feet.
led this, and then Blake on our team, our creative lead. I mean, if you look at the visuals behind this, so good.
Yeah. So that was all in-house?
All the visuals were made mostly in-house. We did have an agency that we partnered with that had a really cool camera that could do some unique angles.
Yeah.
But Blake just really crushed those visuals. And it took much longer that was a beast to get done. It took a long time to get that out. But we hope to do many more collabs in the future and unexpected things that you would never think of. There's some that I wish I could share now. And none of them are in the works yet. There's just ones we've been thinking about. Yeah. But that was a big moment for our awareness. I mean, we've just, again, a new shoe company, spoiled to have Nike as a partner, been able to do a collab that was fun, and then, get into 9-figure run rate. It's just been a blast in a couple short years.
That's cool. Yeah. And so, how long have you been with them?
So I
what was that
walked
day
out
that you
of the
walked
door.
over there?
Yeah, I left Purple on February 2019 and started a retainer with Kizik that same day or within days.
Yeah.
I mean, I met them then, and we probably signed a deal a week or two later.
Yeah.
So since 2019, I've been involved, and pretty soon Mike's like, "Are you all in or not?" And I love consulting. I love having something on the side. So I'm all in on Kizik now, but my solution to that, my itch to do new things has been, I've stayed true to Kizik, but I do board and advisory, but I'm not all in consulting, like advising and helping build other companies at the moment. So.
Okay, so 2019, and the revenue when you joined there was some, or
I think a couple $100,000.
Okay, and now 9 figures. That's amazing. That's probably been a really fun rocket ship to be a part of.
It's been fun, and again, I hope the arrogance doesn't go well. I hope the gratitude.
You heard it here first. Yeah. Alex is taking 100% of the credit for all of the success that happened at both Purple and Kizik.
I hope the gratitude for good people and amazing products.
You've name dropped quite a few names. We'll have to remember to try and tag all those people on the podcast in the notes. But okay, so if you take these two kind of amazing consumer products that in and of themselves were great products. That can't be denied. It's not putting lipstick on a pig. These were great products. Then how do you grow and evolve and create that emotional connection with people between those products? When you think about that, how does a brand create an emotional connection with its customers? How do you think about that now through all these years of like trial and error and testing this and seeing what works and wasn't? Is there kind of like a best practices, or here's the top 3 things that a brand should be thinking about in terms of like creating an emotional connection with their customers? How do you give advice to like the brand new brands that you're consulting with in terms of like how does one connect on a meaningful level with their customers? How do you think about that now after these 2 different successes?
This might not be an orthodox answer, but like
I love unorthodox. Let's do it.
Like, I know there's all kinds of tactics you can do, and there's things I believe in, but the one for me is like, why not have it all? Like, there's so many brands that they've got their one advantage, or their style is great but the quality's low or whatever. Why not have it all? Like, why can't we have the best product, the best marketing, the best operations. And I know that sounds trivial and like everybody, of course, wants
like,
it all.
why wouldn't, I mean, everyone wants that, but like, is it possible to get that? Like, how do you,
in my view,
how do you get that?
We have the best CEO and we have the best marketing team in the state, and we have differentiation, and like being willing to say we want it all means we won't sacrifice anything. And like, I don't know, if I've been recruited over the years, like somebody will come in and offer you way more money or something, and you'll think, why wouldn't I take that? And then you look at the situation, and it's like politics suck there, and this and that, and like, so the reason I say I want it all is because when things are good, when people are happy, people work harder. It's easier to get momentum.
Yeah.
When you don't sacrifice, hey, our shoe's 60% of the way there, you don't become great that way. And we know we have tons of room to improve. We know people want, more style, and we know they want, us to increase quality and all those things. But like, we have such a great differentiation. We do want it all. We want the most stylish shoes, the best quality material. We want to be the most efficient with our marketing.
Yeah.
And so that's something I think about. And I know that's not tactical and maybe not measurable for some, but to me, that mindset enables me to feel like anything I'm a part of is going to win better than it would have otherwise.
How does that translate to the emotional connection with the customer?
People feel it. Nike is now
so authentic as part of your brand that it like oozes from everything that you do.
I think in the beginning Mike is a visionary. He can't help but preach how hands-free is going to change the world, right?
Yeah.
And when you don't have that, and I know everybody talks about passion, but I think sometimes it's fake because people either want to make money or they want the power of being a leader. When it's real, people feel it. And that's why I joined. I felt that passion. And then I want to spread the passion to my team and the people that I bring in. And so, once, Apple, Nike, Tesla, the brands that people reference these days, it's not as attached to a person anymore, and it becomes its own thing. Yeah. But when you're building, people have to evangelize, for lack of a better word, and that connection isn't attached to the brand yet. It's more connected to people. So again, that's why I say LinkedIn has been influential for us, because to build that passion, to create brand love, people have to feel that from somewhere. Yeah. And now we're getting it through the brand, and it's not people or us preaching it anymore, and it starts to scale from there. And so, we all get tired of the words that everybody uses, authentic and whatever, but like, there's some real truth to authenticity, and I'm tired of marketers saying that, but like, it's real. It comes through, and sometimes if the product is so good or the style is right, you can still be successful, but it really does matter.
Maybe flash in the pan.
Yeah.
It might be successful for a minute, and then it kind of fades because there isn't that connection. It's not like the brand isn't the thing that you're connected to. It was just like, oh, that was a cool product, but I'm going to use it for a minute, and then I'm on to the next or whatever.
Well, and back to the I want it all mindset, like, if we're going to spend $1, I want my dollar to be more memorable. I want my dollar to be more efficient than anybody else in the space. So I do watch what other people do. I do watch what they say, and I want to make sure mine is more efficient in every way, not just one lazy way. Yeah. Like, if it's better in every way, I can't lose. It'll eventually pay itself back and build upon.
Yeah.
So that's how I think, and I'm not saying it's the best way, but that's the way my brain works. And I'm a little eccentric. My dad was a nuclear physicist, and he made me odd and eccentric, and that passes into my marketing. So, yeah.
That's good. A little bit of that mad scientist stuff. Yeah. So where does Kizik go from here?
I think we keep growing. I think you'll see us in more stores in the future. I think...
that's an interesting... I know we're long on time maybe, but you're an e-commerce brand and then decided to do a physical store. Is that kind of like,
we're a footwear company.
Is it?
Yeah. Purple built itself on e-com, but in the end, still most people buy in stores. So one thing I love to do is create noise online, and then when you negotiate in store, you have an advantage, because Purple was the most searched for mattress in the world, and all of a sudden we waited to do deals in stores. Kizik's getting a ton of attention in footwear. We have shoe execs looking at our profiles every day, and they're watching.
One thing that I think you've said to me in the past, again, like prior to this, was that the demonstrability of a product also lends itself, like a physical store makes a lot of sense or is more valuable if there's something demonstrable about the product.
Yeah.
Like you could go try it on and say, it really is that easy to slip these shoes on, right?
Yeah. And I don't mind sharing what works for us because I think we have a great competitive advantage. So because demonstrations and visuals through video work so well for us in store, we have great people in our stores, great personalities, but we always put a video screen fairly close, and we consider that another agent on our floor because most people are just showing their fashion and people look right past it. Ours is showing why we are different, and so retail will be massive for us. We're in the process of many more stores and wholesale partnerships and arrangements, and we want to get the shoe to the people now. And you see lift online when you invest in
How has it been
bricks.
global?
So we have a new lead of international. His name's Morgan. He's been at Vans and some other great brands, at Nike as well. At the moment, we're in the U.S. and Canada, and we do have a way that people can buy internationally, but we aren't aggressive with it yet. So that's a work in progress for us, but very excited about that. Just like I mentioned in the very beginning, when people look at Kizik and they think of all the use cases for our shoes, we get that same inbound internationally. Like, I can't believe this isn't in Asia. I can't believe this isn't here, where people actually take off their shoes when they go in the house. So in America, it's a convenience thing, and Americans are notorious for trudging their dirty shoes through their homes straight to their bed. But I think that's changing in the U.S., and globally it's always been a hands-free, take your shoes off at the door type of thing. So the market's ripe. There's just a lot of work to do.
You blow it up from here, and then they go public, and that's when you walk down the street. Like, what other brands are within walking distance of Kizik, just so that we can predict like where your next huge hit's going to come from?
We'll see.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thanks so much for coming on. This has been really cool. It's super fun to hear the stories of like these two kind of big brands that started in our kind of backyard that are now kind of international, or at least national, and heading towards international kind of big hits. So it's fun to get that. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.